Good morning, good night, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you're listening or watching this show, make sure you follow along. Today we got an excellent guest. He's well known here in San Diego or Southern California. He coached at Torrey Pines football, basketball, baseball, then took it to Maricosa, Texas Tech, and then Southwestern College. And please welcome John Kentera, or as some of you may know, Coach Kentera.
Hey, Manny, great to be with you today. Thanks so much for asking me.
Yes, I am thrilled to have you here. Many of my viewers, I haven't really said this much, but they know that I want to be a journalist and go down that path. But I also, for a while, for some time, I wanted to be, learn more about the coach's side of perspective or even become a coach. I mean, whether it's coaching 5 year olds, high school level, or professional level. I did get some of that experience in my high school during soccer, being the manager for 4 years. As one of my coaches said, that the best player is the player that gets the best out of their teams.
Well, there's no question about that. And Manny, I think really doesn't matter what level you coach. I think it's knowing the sport, being able to teach the sport, and really getting the best out of your athletes. I use a situation many years ago when my youngest daughter was playing youth soccer, and my oldest daughter ended up being a Division 1 college soccer player. So I had learned a lot by watching her play, by watching her being coached by some really good coaches. Well, this one year I decided to help, and I ended up being the coach of my youngest daughter's soccer team. And I started reading books, and I was going to be the best recreation soccer coach I could possibly be, because I figured the better I am, the better I'm going to be able to teach it. The better the girls are going to get it. And when you get better, you enjoy the sport. What are you going to do? You're going to want to play it more. So, that's kind of the way I've always attacked it. I've always wanted to know the ins and outs of all the different sports I was going to coach, because I wanted to be able to bring that to my athletes. Not only create a good team, but I wanted to build their self-esteem, build up their ability to be great players, whether it was boys or girls, because I coached a lot of girls as well in high school in girls softball. So, I just wanted to have our players better prepared than any other school that we were going to play against that year.
So you coached at Torrey Pines, correct?
That's correct. I had a
And then,
couple of different stops at Torrey Pines. I started my career there. I was there for 3 years, and then I went into college baseball for 5, and then I came back and coached another 7 years of baseball at Torrey Pines, 3 years of football, and 2 years of basketball, and 2 years of girls softball.
so you can say, how were your coaching days? What was your biggest? What were you known for in coaching?
I think my love for the players, and we're very fortunate. We won a lot of ball games at Torrey Pines, in all the different sports that I coached, even in girls softball, where they had been kind of a dormant program. They hadn't been all that successful, and we went in there, and it helped that my daughter was the star pitcher on the team. But we had 2 pretty good years, and I told them I was only going to coach 2 years, and we made the playoffs the first year, just missed the playoffs the second year. And basketball, we had some incredible teams where I was an assistant coach. And baseball, we had some great ball clubs. Football, we weren't great, but we were pretty good. But a lot of great memories. And not only are there a lot of great memories, but I still see a lot of those athletes around San Diego and in my community. And when we see one another, it's always great because we had a lot of fun coaching. We had a lot of fun. I think the players had playing for me, and they know that I was always a guy that cared a great deal for them, not just because they were an athlete. I wanted them to be a better student. I wanted them to be a better community member, and hopefully some of the things that I taught them along the way have allowed them to be a better husband, a better father, and somebody out in the workforce that does a great job and can provide for their family.
I mean, if we're being totally fair here, you are well known in the San Diego area, so anyone's gonna recognize your name. When Jay messaged me or when we had that phone call, he said John Kentera, and I'm like, that name clicks. And then when I did my research, I'm like, yes, I know who if I knew he is.
Yeah, Couple of things, man. Yeah, first of all, coaching, aside from my family, sports has always been the biggest thing in my life. I was very fortunate. I grew up in a family. Uh, my dad was a college football player and a professional boxer. My brother was a great athlete in his own right. And he was my older brother. And, a lot of times nowadays you see where parents, they really push their kids to play sports. That wasn't the case with my family. I pushed myself. I wanted to play sports. I wanted to be like my brother. I wanted to be like my dad. My dad didn't push me at all. My brother was probably my toughest critic growing up. Trying to get me to do this or do that or toughen up a little bit. Uh, but you know what? I grew up in a great family. I had a great mom and dad, a great brother who was 12 years older than me. Um, and I always wanted to be a coach. I knew even when I was a player as a young boy that I wanted to be a coach. I got into the radio business kind of by accident more than anything else, but there's nothing more outside of my family that I enjoy doing is coaching a boy or a girl and taking them out for, a half hour, 45 minutes, working with them and making them a better ball player.
So would you say your brother was your biggest competition?
Yeah.
I,
Well, he was a tough guy. I mean, my brother, I'm 6'7". My brother was 6 foot tall, but he was a football player. He was a great defensive back. Was a all league wrestler. Was a great track and field athlete in his day. Played a little baseball as well, but he was always trying to get me to toughen up and be tougher in basketball, go inside and bang with the big guys because I was a big guy. And we used to have these like hellacious one-on-one basketball games out in our driveway. And really, even when I was a really good all CIF type player in high school and one of the leading scorers in the county for a couple of years, my brother would still more times than not beat me in one-on-one contests. But then once I got to college, it became a completely different story. And he'll even tell you that. I mean, once I got to college and really learned some of the finer points of basketball, he had no chance against me, Manny.
okay, so now that we're moving on from coaching, before we move on to the next, to the radio side, I want to know what's something you learned from someone or like a mentor that they have taught you that you still carry to this day.
Well, there are a lot of things. And, I think one of the things that I learned early on, I got on the radio in 1990, and probably in about 1994, 1995, I was working with a guy by the name of Chet Forty, and Chet unfortunately passed away in 1996. But Chet had taught me, he goes, John, when you're on the radio, it's really fun. But when you go out in the community, make sure that when you go out and make an appearance or go to the ballpark or you run into people, you always take time to shake their hand, find out their name, and you're going to have a listener for life. And Manny, that was kind of who I was to begin with. I've always been someone that, that you could come up and approach and talk to. But with what Chet told me that day, I've always remembered that. And he goes, you're going to have fans for life. And I think, he gave me that advice, 26, 27 years ago. And here I am in 2021 doing a midday talk show, kicking butt on the radio and having as much fun right now as I've ever had on the radio, quite frankly.
That's actually, you have a great show. I was listening to it for the
Thanks.
first time today, and I can sense your energy that you had in there. And I was here in my room talking to, like, oh yeah, this Padres that, the Aztecs this, having my own little debates.
Oh well, that's the great thing about sports. Everybody sees it different. That's why I love talk shows. That's why I love when people that listen to my program call in the program because everybody sees it from a different point of view. Everybody's had different life experiences. My life experiences are certainly different than a lot of the people that have talk shows. I mean, there are a lot of them have played a little bit of athletics, but they haven't played at the level I played at in college, or they haven't played to the level that I coached at. I mean, coaching, and coaching a lot of different sports as well. So I've got a different view on different things. I know what it's like, Manny, to be in a locker room after losing a tight ball game. I know what it's like to be in a locker room when you've won a championship. I was also the general manager of the San Diego Sockers for 6 years, and we won 3 league championships, and I've got 3 championship rings. I know what it's like. And so, when a quarterback, and I go to a quarterback because a lot of quarterbacks take so much flack when they don't win a ball game. I know what it's like to be in a locker room, losing a tough ball game. And, people will call in and they'll bag on this guy. Well, he did this or did that. They never want to give the opponent of that team credit. I mean, they always talk about what your team didn't do. How about what the other team did? They're out there playing too. And so, I guess more than anything else, Manny, I've got a lot of compassion for coaches, for players, and people that are out there on those athletic fields, because it's not all that easy. And
Yes.
you've got other people that are trying to be successful as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. I mean, you even see this at a professional level when the biggest team is starting off great and then in the playoff they lose to a divisional opponent out of nowhere. You're probably guessing what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, and that happens. I mean, those guys are getting paid too. Those
Yeah,
guys are practicing, they're preparing, and in a lot of those NFL games, one play could lead to a loss or to a win. I mean, a good punt return to get you into field goal range late in a ball game. Just so many factors come in. But again, I think sometimes we always look at what our team's not doing, and we don't give the opponent enough credit.
yeah. I always like to listen to both sides. I want to hear what they say, and
There's no
then
question.
yeah, it's interesting what people come up with, and sometimes it's even silly what they say.
Well, after a game, a lot of times, I always had the rule I didn't want to talk until about 10 or 15 minutes after the ball game. And I certainly didn't want my players to talk until at least 10 or 15 minutes after the ball game. Because, man, when you've been, preparing for a ball game, especially in football, when you've been preparing for 6 days and you lose a tight ball game, it's tough. And there's a lot of emotions and, good and bad. But it's better to, let cooler heads prevail, calm down a little bit, and then get your thoughts out when you're asked some questions. But when, in high school, a lot of times, because writers are on deadlines, as soon as the game's over, they're right there and they want to comment right now because they've got to get it into the paper so it can be in the morning paper. And a
Yeah,
lot of times high school coaches, even high school coaches, they need a few minutes to kind of compose themselves, get their thoughts together.
I've been at a when I help at my soccer team. I've had that experience. The quiet in the before we go to the bus or in the bus ride, we're all just quiet, dead silence after a tough loss, and I know what that feels like. You just don't want to say anything.
No, you don't want to be that guy that says something or drops something and everybody's looking around the bus. I like those buses quiet on the way to a ball game, and I like them pretty noisy on the way home, because if they're noisy on the way home, you're coming home with a W.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so now that we touched a little about your coaching days and some of the things you touched up on, I want to know radio, the transition. You mentioned it was a mistake. How was it a mistake?
Well, what happened was I was coaching baseball at Texas Tech University. We had a great season. I was there in the 1986 season. We had a great season. We set the school record for wins. I was a recruiting coordinator and assistant coach, and everything was going very, very well. Least of all, I thought. And my boss, a guy by the name of Gary Ashby, was the head baseball coach there, and he came into the office after the season was over, just before all the kids were going to go to summer break. He goes, "Shut the door." I shut the door, and he goes, "I just got fired." And I go, "Wow, you just got fired? What's that going to mean for me? Because you're the one that hired me." Well, make a long story short, I got rehired. They hired a new head coach about a month later. I was the only coach that was rehired, and I said I'd stay. And then after about 6 months, I realized, you know what? I think I need to take my wife and young children back to California. I came back to California in February of 1987, and I really didn't know what I was going to do, Manny. It was a bad time because all the colleges were starting to play, all the pro teams were heading to spring training, and I had an interview with the New York Yankees that a friend set up, but they didn't have any jobs for me. I was going to substitute teach here in the San Diego area and just kind of, wait until jobs would open up after the school year. Well, one of my old high school coaches, Frank Chambliss, his brother was a great first baseman of the Yankees, Chris Chambliss. He got a hold of me and said, hey, why don't you come up to Carlsbad High School? We're scrimmaging tomorrow. You can watch the scrimmage, and I want to talk to you. So I went up there, and about the third inning, Frank walks over to the backstop on the third base side and goes, hey, how would you like to coach this year? And I said to him, I go, Frank, I can't come out here and just, coach to coach. I got to make some money. I got a wife and 2 children. And he goes, well, there's a guy that would like to talk to you. And I go, who's that? And he goes, a guy named by the name of John Lynch. I go, what's he do? He goes, he owns 17 radio stations. Well, to cut to the chase on this, I met with Mr. Lynch on a Sunday. He told me to come to the radio station on Wednesday. I went down there, and unfortunately, he had to go on an emergency call to New York. So I came home and told my wife, I go, he wasn't there today, and I got to go back tomorrow. So I went back the next day, and he said, I'd like you to coach baseball at Torrey Pines, and I'd like you to work here in the radio business with me. And I told him that I would do it. I would coach at Torrey Pines, and I'd come down and work in the radio business, not on the air, but working in corporate development and doing some other things that eventually led to on the air about 3 years later. And so I started coaching at Torrey Pines. I started coaching baseball in the spring of '87. In the fall, they made me the head freshman football coach. In the winter months, I became the head freshman basketball coach and the varsity assistant. So I was coaching 4 different teams in 3 different sports, and I was working in the radio business early in the morning. So I had a very, very full calendar.
So when did you start doing live broadcasts?
Well, I did a little bit on a station called 690 Extra Gold. I would come on with Blumen and Harrigan. It was a morning show on an oldie station. I would come on in 1987 in the fall. I came on and I would talk about like the top high school games that night. On a Friday morning, I'd do like a 5, 6, 7 minute segment with them. Then on Sundays, we carried the San Diego Chargers. And I would go out during the week and I would interview a high school coach and I would interview a high school player. And we would run that on what they called the parking lot tailgate show. And that was with Blumen Harrigan on 690 Extra Gold. And it's amazing now, the first 2 people I ever interviewed for that Sunday segment on a Charger pregame show was Craig Bell. At that time was the head football coach at Rancho Buena Vista High School, and a kid by the name of Dave Roberts, who was a sophomore quarterback at Rancho Buena Vista. And of course, now we know Dave Roberts is the World Series winning manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So those were the 2 people I first interviewed. Now I did that in '87, and then in '88 and '89, I was still coaching. And so it's very difficult to do a lot of the stuff on the radio. But then in 1990, we started a high school football show on Friday nights it started it started in 1990. It started on Saturday mornings, and after 1 year in 1991 we moved it to Friday nights, and it was from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock in the morning. And I ended up doing that show on Extra Sports 690, eventually 1090 AM. I did that for over 25 years on Friday nights, and now on 97.3 The Fan, when we're non-pandemic, we do a Thursday night high school show from 9 to 11, and then we do a football game starting at 7 o'clock on Friday night. So, I'm still entrenched in the high school athletic arena. I got my first full-time regular talk show in 1996, and all but for a couple of years where I took some time off. I've been on the air ever since.
I gotta ask, you said high school non-pandemic. If Newsom frankly allowed high school sports, would that Thursday high school sport talk show would continue?
I would certainly hope so. I'm hoping that our management want to continue to do that. Again, they're still going to, side on caution. They're not going to send any of us that are intercom employees out in the general public unless they feel their employees are safe. But I would certainly hope at least by the fall of 2021 we could be back doing the high school show on Thursday night, and definitely being out at a high school on Friday night calling a football game. That's been a big part of my adult life, Manny.
That's what started for me, the high school shows. I grew up with prep prep skin report PPR,
Uh-huh.
and then it was in eighth grade. And then that's when I'm like, you know what? I want to do something similar, but I'm not sure yet. And then as I got older, I'm like, okay, I want to write about sports. And then like, no, I want to coach. No, I want to be on the radio. I just want to do a little bit of everything, get the experience.
Well, you can get it, and again, I think the more you're out there, the more you see, the more you talk to people, the more you take in knowledge. I'm a big believer that every day I go to the ballpark, whether it's a football field, a basketball court, a baseball diamond, I'm gonna try to get better every day because I want to learn as much as I possibly can about the different sports. I know quite a bit because I've been exposed to it, but you can always learn something.
You
There's
always,
always something to be learned.
there's always, yes, like you said, you can learn even the little details. When I started learning sports, I like to learn more about the basic fouls and plays, but I'm still learning as we go. Because there's always these rules changes that you gotta.
Absolutely, there are always rule changes, and you got
Yeah.
to figure out how those rules can benefit you. Oh, I think the first thing I'd ask you, what is your favorite sport, either to coach, cover, write about, or I mean, what sport do you really get fired up? It's going to be on TV that night. What sport is it?
Well, like Jay Paris once told me on the phone and on an interview, on the phone call and on the show, there's no one that he knows more than Charger football. So whenever football's around, whether it's college or the NFL, I'm always pumped and excited to watch about it.
Well, that's good, and I can tell you, I've known Jay Paris a long time. I was covering the Chargers back in the mid '90s when they went to the Super Bowl, and Jay Paris was there every day, covering Stan Humphries and Junior Seau and Natron Means, and I know Jay was the first guest on your podcast. That's a good guy to get out of the blocks. He's had a lot of great experience around some of the best in the business.
And he's one of the best helps I had received through my journey. But I mean, I enjoy every sport. Recently, last year, I got into hockey.
That's great. Hockey's a great sport, man. I love hockey.
Yeah,
I don't watch it as much as I do the other sports, but I do. I love hockey, and I love. There's nothing better than watching the Stanley Cup playoffs. They're fantastic.
yes. I can watch. I am interested to learn any sports. Right now the top is football, soccer, basketball, baseball, hockey, and then I still like to learn more and more.
And you know what, Manny? Anytime it's an athletic competition, I try to find out as much about it, even if it's a sport I maybe not like as much as another sport. I still want to know a little bit about it.
Like I say, every day passes by. There's always something new you can learn.
No question. No question about that. All righty, Manny. Hey, if Coach Kentera can, anyone can.
Yes, and then other than that, is there anywhere our guests, our viewers can watch or reach out to you or even listen to your show?
Yeah, just you can go to 97.3 The Fan uh, and download on the radio.com app. You can listen whether you have a radio or not. Just download the radio.com app at 97.3 The Fan, favorite 97.3 The Fan. And if you're laying on the beach, you can have your phone on 97.3 The Fan. And again, my talk show's on Monday through Friday, 12 to 3 on 97.3 The Fan, the home of the San Diego Padres, I might add.
Yes, and speaking of the Padres, I'm just excited what they've been doing this offseason.
It's going to be, I can't wait for a pitchers and catchers report. They report, Manny, on February 17th. The rest of the ball club will report on February 22nd. First spring training games will be February 27th. And the first home game and also the season opener will be on April 1st at Petco Park. against the Arizona Diamondbacks. So, Manny, thanks so much for having me today. I look forward to doing this again down the road.
Hey, no problem. So if you want to hear more about the Padres or San Diego Southern California sports, don't forget to look up John Kentera on the radio.com app at the John Kentera Show.